Welcome to Mining Indaba 2025, and I'm speaking to Terry Heymann, who's the CFO of the World Gold Council.
Hi.
Terry, great to chat to you again. And what are your impressions of Mining Indaba this far?
There seems to be a real buzz. I mean, I think that every year you come and there's a sense of what's happening in Africa and what's happening around mining. The whole focus on the need for mining, the need for the metals that are going to transform our energy landscape. You sense that here because so many of those metals are being found across the African continent. At the same time, I think there is an understandable level of concern around the political situation globally and indeed in individual countries and what that means for the ability ultimately for investors to get returns from these mining projects and to support continued investment. So there's excitement and there's also a little bit of all right, how do we make this, ensure that this works for all parties? Because if mining doesn't work for all parties, mining doesn't work, and it has to find the right ways to achieve that.
Okay. Now, that's an interesting point that you brought up, Terry, about mining having to work for all parties. And something that has come to the fore, especially in South Africa in recent months, is illegal mining. And that affects the gold sector as well. And it is $1 billion criminal syndicate, if you want to call it that. What is the World Gold Council doing to, one, possibly protect the livelihoods of what we call illegal miners, and also to ensure that we can eradicate this crime?
You're absolutely right. It's a hugely important topic, of course, for the global gold industry. It's not just a South African issue, it is genuinely a global issue. So, of course, it's a hugely important topic for gold, but it's also a hugely important topic for, we believe, governments around the world, because, unfortunately, so much of the proceeds from illegal artisanal mining find their way through to armed gangs, unlawful groups. It's effectively a form of illicit finance. And so what we've done is work to set out the challenges around illegal mining. We actually commissioned Dominic Raab, the former UK Deputy Prime Minister, to write a report, Silence is Golden, and that has 20 points where he calls on governments around the world, international organizations like the World Bank, to take action to cut off these sources of funding. And an alternative is around how you actually support formalization, where there is responsible actors, which is not always the case, but there are responsible artisanal actors, how they can be brought into the formal market, how you can create mechanisms where organized, recognized institutions like central banks can potentially be purchasers of that gold. So we work a lot with central banks. We've set up a program with central banks for domestic purchasing of gold. We would like to expand that and grow that, essentially to provide an alternative to acceptable artisanal miners, that they can sell their gold to recognized parties, they can actually get better prices and better yield from their gold by doing that, and crucially, divert the flow of these illicit funds to criminal gangs, to warlords, to terrorists. But it can't just be the gold industry doing this in isolation. You have to have governments involved, you have to have governmental organizations like the G7 and the G20 and the World Bank. Those are the organizations we're speaking with, and really hope it will lead to sustained progress on this really important issue.
Great stuff. Well, Terry Heymann, CFO of the World Gold Council, thank you for joining us on Mining Review Africa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Thank you, Terry.